Kyle, would you please call the roll?
Senators Bean.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
Bernscatter. Crawford. Gregory.
Here.
McCreary.
Here.
Washington.
We have a quorum. I appreciate everyone who has traveled across the state to attend today's hearing. For those here to testify on legislation, please speak into the microphone and make sure the red or green dot's on. Introduce yourself and address your comments to the committee members. Please keep your comments relevant to the legislation. Once your testimony concludes, the committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions. Please complete the witness appearance form on the table and leave it on our table for our committee minutes. And please silence your cell phones if you haven't already. We're not going to have an exec session today. We're going to hear Senate Bill 1586, sponsored by Senator Brown. And Senator Brown, you're welcome to come up. Kyle, I think you have an announcement.
For the benefit of the audience, Senator Brown has drafted a committee substitute, which most of his remarks today will be on the substitute. So for the benefit of the audience, there's copies of the bill on each corner of the desk. So feel free to help yourself to take a look at that. Thank you.
Senator Brown, you may proceed when you're ready.
We'll have copies available in the chairman's office after this hearing as well if we run out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the opportunity to present Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 1586. About a year ago, I was contacted by a constituent by the name of Jim Roberts. He shared a devastating story about how he purchased 20 acres of land in Franklin County in pursuit of a dream. He had imagined the land would serve as the perfect place to build a life, start a farm, and raise a family. A dream that came crashing down around him one day as he was walking his property and found a strange orangish goo seeping out of the ground beneath one of his property's creeks. It was then he began to search for answers. Through a sunshine request, eventually led him to the discovery that his new home was located adjacent to the old abandoned Generally landfill in St. Clair, a toxic environmental disaster that had been sitting unaddressed for decades. You see, once upon a time, a previous owner of the site had operated this landfill illegally for years before fleeing the country. The site was left uncapped, unclosed, and to this day continues to leak leachate and other toxic materials into nearby properties and streams, including watershed into the Merrimack River. It's important to point out that this isn't just a problem affecting one local community. Due to the poisoning of nearby rivers and streams, this environmental disaster is much more widespread and impacting a larger region, the full extent of which is unknown even to this day. And unfortunately, it gets worse. There are 28 other similar sites scattered throughout the state of Missouri, as you can see on the map that was distributed. It also includes the name and corresponding the name of the corresponding state rep and senator whose district contains one of these sites. These sites are catastrophic nightmares that serve as a tremendous liability to our state, a liability that only becomes more damaging and more expensive to resolve with each passing year. If there's one thing we should all agree on, it's that Missourians deserve clean water, rivers, and streams. So what led us to this point? How could 29 abandoned landfills go addressed and largely unnoticed for decades? Why, for the better part of last year, was I and my constituent, Jim Roberts, constantly pointed in circles by multiple levels of government, multiple agencies, while unable to obtain any answers. In December, acclaimed environmental activist Erin Brockovich summed it up pretty well in a report she published on this very same landfill. In her report, she states, and I quote, "This mess is what happens when we build a regulatory system designed not to solve problems, but to avoid responsibility for them. We create overlapping authorities with conflicting mandates, ensuring that when something goes wrong, everyone can point at someone else. We pass sweeping environmental laws, then systematically defund and hamstring the agencies tasked with enforcing them. Missouri DNR is understaffed and underfunded by its own admission, but that's a political choice, not an inevitable one." End quote. County governments are unable to bear the cost of even the initial environmental study to survey the extent of the problem, much less afford the cost of full cleanup of the site. At the state level, the Department of Natural Resources is also handcuffed and largely unable to assist. The reasons for this are actually twofold. One, they lack the necessary statutory authority to address abandoned landfills. All statutory authority that is granted to the department for the purpose of addressing solid waste disposal sites is tied to the owner. The department has the ability to identify, investigate, and prosecute owners of sites disposing of waste illegally. Though when these statutes were originally created, I don't think they could have foreseen a situation like we have today, with 29 of these ownerless sites scattered across the state. Number two is lack of funding to address the problem. Senate Bill 1586 addresses both of these issues. Now, step one is pretty straightforward. This bill grants DNR the statutory authority to assess, investigate, test, remediate, and manage abandoned solid waste disposal areas. Step two, it addresses the funding. Currently, there are 20 solid waste management districts that serve as an intermediary between DNR and the city's, counties, recycling programs, and other recipients of grants aimed at waste diversion. At the time this system was implemented, there were 77 active landfills across our state. Present day, there are 17. The waste districts consume 61% of all tipping fees collected statewide, which is actually up from the percent of tipping fees they received when first implemented. Present day, this accounts for approximately $8.5 million a year. 50% of that $8.5 million is consumed on just the overhead to keep the waste districts going. Though I will note that the amount of overhead can vary a decent amount from district to district. This means right off the bat, the state is losing well over $4 million a year that could be utilized to both allocate more funds for these environmental programs while also leaving several $million a year to put towards the process of conducting environmental studies and cleaning up our state's 29 abandoned landfills. Now, I will say I've had the opportunity to speak with several people who operate these districts, and based on my conversations, many of them seem like just all-around good people who I believe are truly seeking to make a positive impact in their communities. That being said, we also cannot overlook the countless instances of waste and abuse deeply embedded throughout the solid waste district system as a whole. Examples have ranged from misuse of funds for personal gain to excessive spending on office artwork and decorative books to the tune of six figures. One example that stood out was an instance in which a director utilized a grant to fund a no-bid, contractless lease of an office building he also owned, seemingly utilizing grant funds intended for waste mitigation to benefit himself personally. I've gone through audits and reports dating back to the early 2000s, and unfortunately, examples of waste and this sort of abuse are far too widespread throughout the current system. This bill would essentially cut out the middleman and streamline the grant process directly through the department, which already administers over $1 billion in grants every year to municipalities, counties, and local environmental organizations, thus eliminating the $4+ million lost in overhead and providing our state with the necessary funds needed to address these environmental nightmares. Now, in the time since filing the original version of this bill, I have actively sought out input from various stakeholders and have had numerous conversations with organizations who are currently the beneficiaries of the grants administered by the solid waste management districts. Even though the bill as originally filed did absolutely nothing to eliminate a single dollar of funding for any of these organizations, there were concerns expressed that they were just not confident that the continuation of those funds was necessarily guaranteed either. Based on this feedback, I drafted the sub that I am presenting today, which I believe will not only guarantee that the current level of funding continues, it would in most scenarios result in an increase. So as stated before, under current law, waste management districts receive 61% of all tipping fees, approximately $8.5 million. Since oversight is somewhat limited and Whether and how much each waste district reports to the department varies. We have no way of knowing exactly what the actual percentage of our statewide tipping fees is that actually makes it to the end grant recipient. In order to generate an accounting for this and ensure there is no loss of grant funding for these purposes, I added the following language. And if you'd like, you can follow along at the bottom of page 7, section 1. The department shall allocate a percentage of revenue dedicated to grants previously managed by the solid waste management districts. This percentage shall serve as a minimum percentage of revenue to which such grants shall be percentage of revenue to fund such grants and shall be calculated as follows. The total grant amount previously administered by all solid waste management districts for the previous 3 fiscal years divided by the total amount of solid waste tonnage fees from the previous 3 fiscal years. This allows us to use a 3-year sample size to determine the actual amount that has been awarded by solid waste districts annually. It takes that data and it doesn't simply preserve that same level of funding going forward. I went even further and established that as the absolute minimum the department must allocate solely for the funding of the grants and programs formerly funded by the waste districts. The other primary concerns expressed were regarding potential changes to the local distribution of funds, how it impacted local control of those funds, and simply the loss of a salary by someone who may be currently directly employed by one of the districts. I attempted to address these concerns in the sub as well. There was a portion of statute pertaining to how funds would be distributed locally to each solid waste district, which was originally removed along with other statutory references to the districts. I reinstated the local distribution language, simply replacing the geographic boundary of each district with the geographic boundary of each of the department's 6 regional office territories. Just as before, it would distribute funds according to the same formula under current law. 40% will continue to be allocated based on population, while 60% will be allocated based on the amount of revenue generated within each geographical area. As far as who will be controlling the funds, aka whether it would retain quote-unquote local control, grants would be awarded directly to municipalities, counties, local environmental groups, and regional planning commissions, directly allowing them to retain control over how those funds would be utilized. To the argument that someone might lose a salary if the solid waste districts are dissolved, I'll make the same argument I made to my own county commissioner after a meeting I had with them just last week alongside their solid waste management district director for that region. And this is a woman who I wholeheartedly believe is one of the good actors within this system. She was passionate, experienced, and had a track record managing recycling and other programs within the county that was truly an asset. I looked at him and said, if you're not willing to take advantage of the opportunity to utilize these same grant funds to hire this woman on and allow her to continue this work directly for the county, you must be crazy. In other words, if there's a person or people who are doing good work, making substantial contributions to their community and local environment, there is absolutely no reason why that work should be discontinued simply because a waste district was dissolved. They may be doing the same work under a different banner, such as working for a city, county, or other organization, but we want these good actors in this system to continue their work, regardless if it's through a waste district or another entity. Despite all this, I am willing to bet there are several people sitting behind me that are lined up to testify against this bill, and believe me, I get it. I get it. Change is scary. But what is more frightening is what happens if we continue to do nothing as this problem continues to worsen with every passing year. We are facing an epic systematic failure of our government to address this issue going back decades. Systematic problems of this scale often require significant systematic changes in order to reverse course. We can get there. It's not too late, but the time to act is now. So it is my hope that the committee joins me in support of Senate Bill 1586 for our children, for our future, and to preserve all the nature and beauty that this great state has to offer. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Does anybody have any questions for the Senator? Senator Bernskoetter.
So you mentioned that these are abandoned and ownerless.
Yes, that is correct.
The one in my district, or one of the ones in my district, I saw it for sale. Somebody must own it.
Well, there are, I think we'll likely have someone testify the similar scenario in Franklin County where they were sold a site. They didn't have any notice that the landfill was on the site, and so that's actually another component of this. It requires someone that's selling a site to disclose in writing about that existence of the site, and if that notice is not provided, they are entitled to recoup their money and cancel the contract. So
It's advertised as it's the old landfill.
That's good in that case. So I mean, I'm not.
But somebody has to own it.
Well, I would imagine, was it in a tax sale?
No.
Okay. Well, there's, I can't speak to exactly what that site is, and I think we have some people here from the department that might be able to shed a little more insight on that specific one. I've been a little bit more focused on addressing the ones that are particularly in my district.
Right.
So I mean,
understand
obviously, I
that.
can't speak to all 29, but I think that we'll have someone up here that likely can.
So you could go, if they're all unowned, somebody could go put a house on it. Nobody would stop them. Be just like the Wild West. They could take them over.
Well, I would think that possession would revert back to the county in a lot of these cases, but without knowing the individual circumstances of each of them, I wouldn't know what the current
I
status
mean, we
is.
have that adverse possession where you put something on somebody's property for a while, and then all of a sudden it's yours.
And abandoned landfill, just for the record, it is also defined in the bill as well. So in the section where it grants the authority to address these. So on page 6, where it says the department shall have the authority to assess, investigate, test, remediate, and manage abandoned solid waste disposal areas. For the purpose of this section, abandoned means that the legally responsible person for the site cannot be identified, located, or was determined to be financially insolvent by the department. So, I don't know the process in which, how one of these sites might be sold. But as far as how that's defined in here, there's no legally responsible party that the department can go after and hold accountable. If that makes sense?
All right, thanks, Senator.
Any further questions? Senator McCreary.
Good morning. Thank you for your overview of the bill. I appreciate that we've already been talking about this for the last week. I think your goal of this bill is to figure out a way to get anybody, whether it's the state, the feds, to address these abandoned landfills. I think that's the purpose of the bill. But then I also feel like part of the unintended consequences of the way you're going about that is dissolving like that middle, the solid waste management districts. And I don't necessarily think that second thing has to happen. So I think that, I've received, I don't even know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails on this, and people are really concerned, and I get that. But I think there might be a way to do what you're trying to do, and I have what appears to be an abandoned landfill in my district as well. I think there could be a way for us to get those, tested and addressed eventually without interfering or making these big changes to the district. So is that something that you've thought about?
It is, and in some of these conversations, that there's been several different ideas kicked around. One including maybe more of a consolidation than a total elimination. So those are all things. There's one version of this plan that would that would go to a system more like that rather than distributing funds according to the regional offices of the department. I need to crunch a few numbers on that and see kind of what the end result would be in practice, but certainly something that I'm up to consider. And that anyone else in the room that happens to be a stakeholder that has concerns, I invite them to engage with me. Several organizations, they've been fantastic in working with me on this, and I think that we've already improved the bill quite a bit, and I'm willing to continue working to make sure that we get it right. I think that you're absolutely right. We can have both. We can preserve these environmental programs that exist now, and we can also finally do something about these sites, because I think that it is just a disservice that our state has left these to dwell for decades, and they've just continued to poison our environment.
Right, right. Well, I appreciate your attention to this, because you don't have to be a scientist to realize like pollution that's going into the water in your district actually impacts my district downstream. So we're all in this together. Thanks.
Any further questions for the Senator Washington? Sorry.
Beauty first. Thank you for presenting this and explaining it so well, but I kind of need to echo my colleague from St. Louis County. I know in our community, one of our main solid waste district, they do a lot of education, and they do a lot of programming in the community. And while I love and respect DNR, they don't do as much, and I don't know if they, and I'm looking at the director, but I have a creek through my community that without the solid waste management district would still be flooding and putting businesses out of business. And I'm sure everybody in the room has heard of the Country Club Plaza. So he's looking away because he's not familiar with the fact that we flood all the time. No, it didn't, because we didn't get it fixed until Congressman became a congressman, actually. He tried to work on it when he first became the mayor. So, no, it didn't. I was a strong reporter back then, wrote a lot of stories. But my point is to keep it clean, to get it widened, and to continue to do what it needs to do. We need our solid waste management district. So I'm hoping that we can come to a compromise that we can punish those for, I'm sorry I was late, I'm in another committee as well, punish those who are not doing what they should be doing, get our landfills cleaned up, but also keep the great services that exist with our solid waste management, with our districts. Because I would hate for us to lose that. I live on a state line border. I'm literally maybe 1.6 miles from state line. And though we have water that goes both sides, and so having our solid waste management district work with both Wyandotte County, Kansas and Johnson County, Kansas helps keep our entire community safe as they continue to work at that. So, I ain't really happy about Wyandotte County and Johnson County right now. I don't like them. Well, I really never liked them, but I really don't like them now. But I'd be willing to, work with you, bring the stakeholders that we have in our community, because this would be extremely devastating.
I'd certainly appreciate the opportunity. As I mentioned before, I think there's no reason to why we can't preserve both. There are, and what's very difficult about this topic is that, you have countless examples of, where the system has failed us, where, there's been abuse, where there's been just obscene amounts of waste, but then you have waste districts and people I've met that within these districts that have done some great work. And whether that work continues in the form of working directly for a local government or another entity, or we maintain some version of the solid waste district and maybe move to more of a consolidation or find some way to have some more efficiency there, I think that there certainly is a path where we can have both.
So, yeah, I'm going to echo again what Senator McQuarrie said, and that is, we seem to want to punish a few people, and this reminds me of when we tried to eliminate historic tax credits, and low income tax credits because we wanted to punish some developer down in St. Louis. And then that would have messed up the whole system. You know, my family's from Saline County. They use those tax credits. They use them in Southwest Missouri. So I don't want us to kill the whole system based on a few bad actors. I think there's a way to punish those bad actors without destroying those positive things that we have in the system.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. This is certainly not intended to punish anyone. This is more about just, you know, weighing different things with limited resources. And, you know, you have to weigh very difficult things like, you know, keep maintaining the current system, which has some good actors, some not so good actors, or, you know, ensuring people like Jim Roberts, his wife, and his infant child have access to clean well water. Making sure that, you know, a group of high school children that might enjoy, you know, basking in the Merrimack River on warm summer months, that they don't come down with some form of cancer or other disease down the road. So I certainly hope I didn't give the impression that this has anything to do with punishing anybody. It's just, you know, when you have a certain pool of resources, it's more an issue of, you know, how can we best allocate these resources to best preserve our environment and the health and safety of people within the state.
Any other further questions, Senator Berger?
Thank you for bringing this forward, Senator. If I look at this list of the 29, what is the oldest date back to the abandoned ownership? Do you know, or abandoned times, or how that would be?
Oh, you know, as far as the date and which would be the first, I can't tell you that. I imagine that I'll have someone here from the department that could probably give you a little bit more on those statistics. I'm just really more familiar with the ones that are within my district. I know that I have a few actually that were owned by the same man that ended up fleeing the country that are not only in Franklin County but also in Warren County as well.
Okay. And if I look at this list, I think there's one in Scott County that's not on this list, possibly that at some point in time. That's something we'll probably need to look at it to see where it's at.
Okay, hear that, Kurt?
We're working on it.
Okay, thank you, because we need to make sure that it's listed too, so people are aware of it. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? How many here are here to testify in support? Who's here to testify against? And here, who's for informational purposes only? Okay, so real quick, we have a 10 o'clock hard stop. The last few weeks, we have hit that stop, so I want to try to get everybody in for testimony. So please try to be as, you know, don't repeat testimony, probably be as quick as you can so I can get everybody in. I'm going to go to informational purposes first. So, Director Schaefer, great to have you here today. And
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. And before Senator Washington leaves, I believe that's the soil and water conservation districts you're talking about. That's a separate, has nothing to do with solid waste districts. Okay. Okay, well, we'll look at that, but I don't know how the solid waste district would be dealing with water, but okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kurt Schaefer, Missouri Department of Natural Resources, here to testify for informational purposes. So basically, first of all, I want to applaud Senator Brown. There's a lot to this, and he has run down literally every aspect of what has been a complicated issue really going on several decades now. And so, but in 2026, what we're looking at and how this works really is not the same as what existed in 1990 when this passed. So two policy issues that you're looking at here. One is you're looking at these abandoned landfills, of which we know there's 29. We know there are more. We just know of 29 right now. Hickory Hill, Senator Bernstetter, is that the one you're talking about, south of Jeff City? That actually is being sold for back taxes, which is a similar circumstance to the generally hauling landfill that's in Senator Brown's district, in which Franklin County took it back for failure to pay taxes, sold it to somebody. They split. They took it back again. It's currently for sale. The reality is no one's going to buy an abandoned landfill. Even if it's free, no one's going to take it for free, because once you get it, we're going to go after you to clean it up because you're in a chain of title. So two issues. One is, as a matter of policy, do you want to do something about these 29 uncontrolled landfills that are a threat to human health and the environment in the state of Missouri? And the other issue is it appropriate for essentially funding solid waste districts and recycling efforts out of the tipping fee the way that was passed in 1990? Is that appropriate now in 2026? especially in light of the fact that if the policy concern is closing these 29 landfills, how are you going to pay for it? Because it's going to be really expensive. So let's take those two parts separately. So the question is, why are there 29 or more abandoned landfills? And I think as Senator Brown mentioned, in 1990, when this passed, there were over 77 operational sanitary landfills in the state of Missouri. And the reason is, in 1990, unlike water, unlike air, which in the 1970s, the federal government passed legislation which we had to carry out as DNR, and about 90% of what we do across the spectrum in environmental regulation is dictated by the feds, but solid waste was left. It was not addressed by the feds until the early 1990s. So in 1993, RCRA, which is the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, had a section added called Subtitle D. And what Subtitle D said is, okay, state, if you're going to permit or allow a landfill, here's the list of things it has to have. You have to have financial assurance sufficient when that landfill closes that for at least 30 years, there's enough money you can access to address anything that may go wrong. It has to have a liner. It has to be permitted, so if it needs a gas extraction system for methane or it's leaking leachate, you can make them do that. That did not exist before the mid-1990s, which is why you had so many of these landfills, because basically almost every county had its own landfill. Most of them were former quarries, because if you have a hole in the ground, what do you do with it? You fill it with trash. But what happened when Subtitle D passed, none of these could meet the requirements. They were already landfills without liners. So literally, you would have to take everything out, which would be cost prohibitive. So all of a sudden, you had a massive consolidation in the industry. So you had Waste Management, Republic Services, and a handful of others that basically started acquiring these landfills. Those landfills that actually got acquired by those existing companies, even though those companies didn't cause any of the problems, are generally addressed, and we hold them responsible for that. These 29 are ones where, for example, a guy named Jimmy Zykan, who Senator Brown mentioned, I mean, we went after him when I was an assistant attorney general in 1997, and he fled, I think it was either Ecuador or Bolivia. It was one of the South American countries that doesn't have an extradition agreement. And he was teaching scuba diving, and as far as I know, he's still there. But I think he had 3 of them. A lot of them, somebody dies, they have no estate plan, they have no relatives, and it just goes into the vapor. So, I mean, we've been working on this for over 30 years. The AG's office has been working on this for over 30 years. Anybody that we can hold responsible, we will hold responsible. These are the ones that there's literally no one that we can go to and make them pay for this. So the department does not have any money, number one, to spend on these. We're running the solid waste program on fumes as it is right now. And then on top of that, we don't have the legal authority to go into somebody's property and just take it over as the state of Missouri. And there's a whole bunch of legal issues that will go along with that unless it's specifically defined by the legislature. So that's one issue. The other issue is this paradigm that exists right now with solid waste districts and how we treat recycling in the state of Missouri, which was passed in 1990, which, remember, is before RCRA Subtitle D took effect. So you still had that kind of old scheme and how landfills operated. But the way it works is right now, for every ton of garbage that is either disposed of in a landfill in the state of Missouri or goes to a transfer station to go outside the state of Missouri, which is about 1/3 of the trash we produce goes to Illinois and Kansas, there's a $2.11 fee put on every ton. Of that $2.11 fee, right off the top, $800,000 comes off and goes to an entity called EIERA, which is the Environmental Improvement and Energy Authority that's under us. They give out grants for various things related to solid waste. We're not really so focused on that because generally they do a pretty good job with that. Of the remaining money after the $800,000 comes out, 39% of that money goes to the department to run the solid waste program. 61% goes to the 20 solid waste districts. By statute, the 20 solid waste districts get to spend 50% on overhead, which is salaries and overhead. Then the remaining 50% by statute, they are supposed to spend on grants for cities and counties. And then there's a list. Sheltered workshops are supposed to get money. Recycling programs are supposed to get money. Here is what's really happened over time. Number one, Claire McCaskill in 2006, one of the last things she did as a state auditor, she did an audit of all this. And she blasted the districts, and then she blasted the department for not having sufficient oversight in some of the things that Senator Brown mentioned and how the money was spent. As a result, the department promulgated a rule on how the department was going to oversee how the money was spent. We got sued by the districts, and a Cole County judge said we had no authority, the way the statute's written, to oversee how they spend their money, just give them their money. And that's how it's been. So some districts give us information. Several districts don't give us any information and haven't for years. I do think it was interesting that after we had the House hearing a couple weeks ago, we suddenly got a whole lot of information that we hadn't gotten in years. And remember, there's a disparity because some of the smaller rural districts, I mean, they may get $100,000, but the bigger urban districts get over $2 million a year. So this money fluctuates every year because it's not the same amount of garbage every year. So, for example, last year, the department got $5.2 million. That was our percentage, and the districts got $8.6 million. And so what those districts do, you've got kind of the middleman, which is the district, but ultimately the receiver is supposed to be sheltered workshops, cities, and counties for these grants. So the question of 50% overhead, I think, is a real question of when we're trying to close landfills, is that appropriate? But I'll give you an example because they may testify today. They testified in the House. So District L, which is, they're going to testify today, they get more money than anybody else. They get about $2.3 to $2.5 million a year. So they have a number of entities that they give money to. So after they take out, their 50% they're entitled to take out, they have a bunch of different groups that they give grants to. Now keep in mind, these city and county grants, they submit those grant proposals. And the entity submitting the proposal, they get to set the metrics on whether or not their grant will be successful. Right now, overall, they have a 32% success rate on defining their own metrics. So that should show you there's not a lot of oversight on what these things are doing. But I'll give you an example on L. So L gets their money, they give it out. One of the entities that gets a lot of money from District L is Earth Day 365. So between 2020 and 2024, Earth Day 365, according to our data, got $1.1 million in grants. They spent about $880,000 on overhead and $107,000 on the actual program. So if that tells you kind of what is lacking in the oversight of this. And I'm not saying everybody operates like that, but I think if you're looking at closing these landfills, and remember, this is a utility that people have to pay. Everyone in the state of Missouri who gets rid of garbage has to pay $2.11 per ton for it to go. And so we're looking at utility rates and everything else. Things are going up. Is that an appropriate use of the money? Is it the best use of the money? I like Senator Brown's bill, the parts that basically address those issues and kind of reorganize it. There's a real question whether or not you need 20 districts when there's only 17 sanitary landfills and 2 construction landfills. There's a whole lot more data on this, but I think if you dig into it, you'll see that this is probably not something that would make it through this building in this form now if you were to take what passed in 1990. And I know that both parties in this building have been very conscious of cost and the way things are going right now, and this is probably something you need to look at.
Any questions to the director? Seeing none, Director, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Okay, I'm going to alternate through. So first up in favor of Senate Bill 1586, please come forward. Like I say, we have got about 36 minutes to try to get everybody in. So,
all right, hello everybody. My name's Jim Roberts. I happen to be the fellow that lives next to an abandoned landfill. I bought a farm in Franklin County in 2017. There was no disclosure that there was a landfill. It's been abandoned for 30 plus years on the other side of the railroad tracks. So you look at it, it's just a hillside full of trees. I didn't think anything of it, and you're not really looking. I didn't even know how to look for abandoned landfills when I was looking for my property. But long story short, I bought it in 2017. Come August of 2024, I noticed orange goo coming out of my spring. And here's a picture of it. So when I noticed that, at first I was kind of playing devil's advocate. Okay, there's a lot of iron around here. Maybe it's just iron bacteria, which I know the orange is iron bacteria. Well, I contacted DNR, and I will say for the record, whether it's lack of authority, in my opinion, they have done a piss poor job. And when I called DNR, the first response I got from the Solid Waste Management Department, I think Charlene Finch is back here, so her employee, Mike Paris, he told me, yeah, we know about it. It's abandoned. We're understaffed. We're underfunded. There's nothing we can do about it. So I went through my journey. I've been failed by the federal government, the state government, and the city government, or the county government. Everybody's pointing fingers. I contacted the EPA. They're like, no, that's DNR's baby. Like he said, DNR has authority over landfills. And then DNR was like, well, you need to talk to the county. They need to pay for an assessment because we don't do assessments. And So I went to the county, and the county's pointing at DNR. DNR's pointing at the county. So then I got a hold of my legislators, Ben Brown and Brad Banderman, and they've been working on this bill to address it. So I've been down every avenue. I've been fighting this for 2 years now. So I had a dream of having a small farm, but 20 acres. I worked my butt off, paid for it myself. And I have a son that's going to turn 2 in March, and I just had my daughter born on the 4th of February. So, we're always outside doing, putting up fence or cutting fire, you name it. And I got a spring on my property and a spring-fed creek, and that boy loves water. So we go walking down by the creek. What little kid doesn't want to go splashing in a creek? I can't let them in the creek. It's toxic. DNR even told me themselves that I should not have had animals drinking out of this. Because when they tested my spring, which they didn't want to test at first because they didn't have any money apparently, but when I raised enough hell and they did some testing on it, PFAS, as you guys all know, PFAS is deemed a hazardous substance by EPA. My spring tested it over 400 times that. So if I have cows drinking out of the creek, which the whole purpose was have live water on the property, I don't got to go out and bust ice out of a waterer. And how PFAS work, if the cows drink that water and it gets in that meat, and then I butcher that cow and me and my family eat that cow, now those toxins are transferred to us. A little side note, my buddy, best man at my wedding, just passed away from cancer. He was a year older than me and in better shape than I am. So I was always under the impression all that cancer had never happened to me, and it did. And these are cancer-causing chemicals, in my groundwater. And now my name and address is all over these documents with DNR because I had to file sunshine requests, which I had to pay for my first initial round, and they had pictures of my property with leachate on it, and they never notified me. So I've been failed by them. But I'm being told the only path forward is to get funding and the authority for DNR to address these abandoned landfills. So that's why I'm here today. I'm a taxpayer just like all of you, and as he said, we all pay trash. My trash went up recently an extra $10 a month, no big deal, but when I hear that tipping fee that DNR is getting 40% and the solid waste management districts are getting 60%, and then you hear about that 50% overhead and then that Earth Day 364 that blows money, it seems, in my opinion, because I've been watching and listening, everybody opposed to this bill are one or two people. It's either an administrative role in the solid waste district or it is one of the end user grants in an environmental program. And it seems to be these administratives are telling all these environmental groups that they're going to lose their grant funding. Ben made it pretty clear. It's in the bill. They can read it for themselves. The funding's still going to be there. I'm sick of taxes like everybody else, but we need to be more efficient with it because I'm being failed right now, and I couldn't give my property away right now. And to buy 20 acres now with a spring and a creek on it, and I built a hell of a nice shop on it, and we planned on building a home out there because right now we bought it, had a single wide trailer on it. So we're like, took the gamble. We'll live in the trailer, and then we'll build a house, and I don't want to build, if I build a house myself, it's going to be $400,000, and why would I risk that building that on property that's contaminated? So I'm in a standstill now, and I got a growing family, and here I am. So I'm in favor for this bill. We got to do something, and if anybody opposes this bill, we need to do something to address these solid waste landfills because I'm being failed right now. I took off work. I've missed so many days of work just fighting this. I know everybody else got to talk, so I'll leave it at that. But two things for you guys, if you want to write this down. There's a Facebook page called Close Generally Landfill. Close Generally Landfill. That's just a Facebook page we started. So you can kind of scroll through that and see all the news articles and the battle I've been fighting. And then I can also give you guys my email. If you want to, feel free to reach out to me and any questions or anything. It's millspringsfarmllc@gmail.com. And I'm sure you can find it on that Facebook page too. And and even if you want to Google KDSK Channel 5 News Toxic Orange Goo, you'll see my 5 minutes of fame online. It pretty much sums up the story, but something's got to be done about this.
Any questions for this witness? Senator Berger?
What year did this start for you?
2024 of August is when I first noticed the orange leachate. Now, that landfill's been abandoned since '93, but that is when I first noticed the pollution entering my property. So I assume something collapsed in the landfill, and that's why it's coming on through.
Was the landfill located above where you're at and also part of where you're at, or how big was the footprint of the landfill originally? Do you know that?
Yeah, so the landfill is a 40-acre parcel. I got a 20-acre parcel, and we're separated between the railroad tracks. And I'm down in the valley because I got the spring and creek,
Okay.
and that landfill's up here. So, I mean, I got equipment. I got a bulldozer and a backhoe and stuff, and I could dig ditches all day long or do any of that, but I can't fight gravity. So until that landfill's addressed, there's nothing I can do. And that creek dumps into the Merrimack River 2 miles away. And it's stated in DNR's documentation, and they got Clean Water Act violations, but apparently nobody can do anything.
So your 20 acres, was it part of the original footprint of the landfill? So do you
No.
have waste under you? It's just above you?
Yeah.
Draining down onto you?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with the original parcel.
So the 40 acres that was the original footprint, that's all located above you, and that's where the landfill was?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for testimony.
No, thank you.
Next up, or first up in opposition
thanks, man.
of Senate Bill 1586.
Senators and committee members, it's with the utmost respect that I come here today to testify in opposition of SB 1586. My name is Lacey Miller. I'm the Western District Commissioner of Marion County. As County Commissioner, I serve on many boards in many roles, including the Missouri Association of Counties, County Commissioners Association of Missouri, and probably most relevant to this bill, the Mark Twain Regional Council of Governments. As part of the Mark Twain Regional Council of Governments, I am a member of the Solid Waste Board. We serve Marion, Monroe, Shelby, Rawls, Randolph, Pike, and Macon counties. As a member of the Solid Waste Board, I've seen firsthand the impacts the funds from our solid waste district have made in our local organizations. Our rural area has many school districts in which seemingly small amounts of money can make a major impact in the education and the lives of our students. Many of these grants offered through the solid waste districts serve to upgrade playground surfaces and equipment in picnic areas, parks, daycares, schools, and churches, all of which is recycled materials. They are used to repair and upgrade equipment at sheltered workshops that provide meaningful employment to the differently abled while reducing landfill inputs. Some of our most unique grants have encouraged textile recycling, which again reduces landfill inputs. Most, if not all, of the schools in my solid waste region have a population smaller than many urban graduating classes, and this is where the need for local distribution of these funds really shine. One of the most impactful and interesting projects was in Shelby County. Shelby County has a total population of 6,100 people. Students put together a clothing pantry to recycle school-themed clothing, helping students who were otherwise unable to purchase spirit wear. Many of these fundraiser items I'm sure you've all purchased and your kid wears them once. And as students graduate, they get thrown out. Rather than throwing them out, they donate them back to the school and pass on their school spirit to students who are less fortunate. This serves the clothing needs of students and reduces textile waste. The FBLA and FCCA clubs in the school went a step further, researching and educating their fellow students on textile waste in the U.S. They even used it as part of their curriculum. Another example of how a small amount of money can serve in a big way is when we were able to award a grant to a school in my own community for basketball safety mats. You know, the mats that go around the gyms and the basketball for the basketball games. Marion County School operates on a budget of around $3 million, and well over 50% of that budget serves to pay statutory requirements for salary and benefits of the teachers. Their student population is around 203 students, pre-K through 12. Without these solid waste grants, the school would not have even been able to consider these vital safety improvements. I spoke with the superintendent of Marion County R2 schools yesterday. She was nearly in tears as I told her about this bill. She said injuries have been nearly eliminated with these mats installed. They were made of recycled materials as well. She was confident that they would never have been considered for funding if not for our local solid waste district. She felt certain that if these districts are dissolved and the funds are distributed through a statewide mechanism, she would not receive future funding. In rural Missouri, we simply do not have the population to provide for large enough scope to compete with urban areas. $2,000 in Northeast Missouri carries impact that would seem insignificant if compared statewide rather than local. Government truly works best and most efficiently the closest to the citizen it serves. It's a little like Cheers, where everybody knows your name. I'm doubtful DNR could properly, impactfully, and equitably distribute environmental funds to the counties and communities that our solid waste district serves. If we are truly concerned with government efficiency, keeping government and funding decisions local is the only viable solution. Not only does this bill take funds away from local control and communities, but it seems to serve as a reward for bad actors, punishing those who truly make a difference. Specifically allocating funds to problem solve the blighted spots of the industry is not a solution to bad actors, it's a reward. It's the opposite of impactful and efficient. Bad actors should be punished, but not rewarded. Funds should be allocated evenly across, or equitably across geographic and population areas of the state, allowing the local people at the heart of the organizations they serve to make decisions to fund projects that are in most need in their areas, projects that can do the most good. It is with the heart of service and a passion for every local community in Missouri that I ask you to vote no on this bill, or at the very least, find a solution that maintains the solid waste districts in the manner that they serve, small and local. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Senator Bernskoetter, proceed.
So you mentioned something about buying a mat for a high school?
They were all out of recycled materials, all of the mats, and then they implemented some recycling programs as well.
So that doesn't really seem like something a solid waste management district should do to me, buying mats for a high school.
It's a mini grant program that we use to encourage recycling and the purchase of recycled materials. They're oftentimes higher, but we use them in ways to encourage people to reduce landfill waste by finding recycled materials.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone to testify for informational purposes only, please come forward.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing me today. I'm Elise Buckite, planner for the Mid-Missouri Solid Waste Management District. Only have to look here now. When a tornado demolished the City of Columbia's Material Recovery Facility, or MRF, in April 2025, my district stepped up. The impact of losing the MRF went far beyond the City of Columbia. 5 smaller communities in Boone County had drop-off sites that had to be closed indefinitely. Thousands of households in other central Missouri cities or rural areas that don't offer recycling had been using Columbia's drop-offs and were suddenly unable to recycle. The recycling did continue in many other communities in my region, which were served by Republic Services or Boone Slick Industries Sheltered Workshop. Unfortunately, glass drop-offs right here in Jefferson City and small community drop-offs in places like Booneville and California were inundated with folks from Columbia. They overwhelmed the drop-offs and didn't follow local rules. Continued misuse at that level put the drop-offs in danger of closing. I worked with all the regional entities to create a communications plan to stop the misuse of drop-offs outside of Columbia. I went on news programs and said the hard truths. My board approved a sponsorship to add signage at Jefferson City's drop-offs. The improper use dropped significantly. I then convened a meeting of all recyclers in the region to give the City of Columbia space to explore their options for short and mid-term recycling and to better understand costs and access in nearby communities. Columbia was able to develop an interim agreement with Federal Recycling in Jefferson City following that meeting, opening back up some limited curbside recycling for Columbia's 130,000 residents. I have continued providing technical assistance to the City of Columbia as they decide what rebuilding options to pursue. I have helped them apply for grants and shared industry data. This work is part of what you have been told today is wasteful overhead spending. In reality, our district always devotes more than 50% of our funds towards grants, but we also don't spend the remaining non-grant funds only on staff and office space. We give $50,000 a year to 4 HHW drop-offs in our region to make sure residents have somewhere to properly dispose of household chemicals. We contract with Missouri River Relief to provide an accessible education program for teachers to use throughout central Missouri, which teaches students how single-use plastics pollute our streams and rivers. The Solid Waste Management District program was created to foster regional collaboration in order to reduce the waste sent to landfills. Grants are vital to that work, but the collections and plan implementation projects conducted by districts are not examples of waste, fraud, and abuse. I have called on DNR to give reports to the Solid Waste Advisory Board on the problem of abandoned landfills. It is an important issue, but the department has been, to date, unable to give SWAB any information on how much it would even cost to find out what a full landfill remediation would cost. We don't know how deep or expensive this problem is. I have called on DNR to promulgate rules because they do have oversight over the districts. Those rules could make program oversight clear and thorough. They have not done so for over 2 years, despite planners providing them with a draft in 2024. DNR does not run a single grant program that is like the district grants. They have not been able to retain staff. They do not provide technical assistance on solid waste or education. If you get rid of the districts, DNR will not be able to replace the benefits the districts provide. If you truly want to address the problem of abandoned landfills, convene a joint interim committee and get the facts. Hastily removing a program that was created with the beginning of the tipping fees over 30 years ago will hurt the communities you represent and likely won't even result in enough funding to deal with the landfills. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have anyone else to testify in favor of, please? Come forward. Keep in mind, we have a hard stop in 15 minutes, so keep your comments as brief as possible, please.
Good morning, Senators. My name is Marisa Cursaco. I am the Dean of Engineering at the University of Missouri-Columbia. And before joining Mizzou, I was a director of a technical assistance for brownfields program in EPA Region 1. So I have worked with 6 states for many years and many local and state government to advance the cleanup of landfills and other brownfield sites. And I am here to testify in favor of the bill and specifically the aspect of it that creates a sustainable and recurring fund to deal with this abandoned sites. So the two things that I have seen in my career in terms of like being able to really make a dent is a robust state regulatory framework and a robust state funding mechanism to deal with those sites. And this bill does both of those, and I have to congratulate Senator Brown for coming up with a truly innovative funding mechanism that connects legacy solid waste with a current funding mechanism. And what this will do is will provide DNR with the ability to prioritize, investigate, and really develop a plan to address those 30 sites over time. And so, even though the annual money cannot necessarily deal with one of the sites, it is the sustainability of this program that makes a real difference. The other aspect that's important is that every dollar that you put in cleaning up in a legacy site generates tax revenue. It increases property values, and essentially, many studies have shown that every dollar that you put in generates between $10 and $40 in future state revenue. And I can see that there could be different mechanisms compared to the dissolving the solid state districts. I'm not here to speak against that, but I am here to speak in favor of the recurring funding mechanism for the abandoned landfills. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Someone next to testify in opposition to, please.
Mr. Chairman, members, member of the committee. My name is Chris Bussin. I currently serve as the chair of the Missouri Solid Waste Advisory Board. Senator Brown, it's nice to meet you. So we'll talk. I've got a prepared statement that I emailed last night, which is much longer, so hopefully you'll have time to read that. I have a 2-minute one here. First of all, I empathize with your plight. I can't imagine buying 20 acres and just being devastated with the situation that developed. One of my hats is the solid waste superintendent for Lee Summit, Missouri. We managed a landfill for over a decade. We currently manage a certified closed landfill, which of course follows the rules. We work with DNR. This is a completely different issue. There's no doubt every board member from the Solid Waste Advisory Board believes this is a serious issue that needs to be dealt with. The question is, how do we do it? And eliminating districts, quite honestly, is just a bad move. We are made up of board members of aldermen, mayors, commissioners, staffers, and we work every day to manage solid waste problems in our district. We have an excellent track record. The 50% administrative costs are non-existent that I can see in the districts. All of this is just fodder, honestly. There was a $9,000 artwork piece purchased by St. Louis 2 decades ago. They made a mistake, they paid for it. It's simple, it's closed. All of these administrative anomalies that have been stated are untrue, and we can prove it. The Solid Waste Advisory Board is a public body that provides oversight of the DNR solid waste system. SWAB is made up of district leaders, industry representatives, and members of the public. We meet regularly to review performance, serve as a check on how the Department of Natural Resources administers the waste management program, and that public oversight is intentional and essential. It was created by a solid waste state of Missouri law. Senate Bill 1586 would eliminate SWAB, which is the group is trying to find solutions to these problems. It removes the only public formal oversight body dedicated to Missouri solid waste management programs. That would be a mistake. Under SB 1586, and I know there's a sub, decision-making authority would be centralized by the DNR with no advisory board representing local governments, industry partners, or citizens. The bill would also divert funds away from the regions that generate the revenue, weaken local capacity, and threaten programs that have taken decades to build. Districts already operate with lean staffing. One of the comments at the House hearing was that districts have 66 staff members. Complete fabrication. We have 22 staff members in 20 districts. That doesn't sound like massive overhead to me. And these are not high-paying jobs. These are borderline charity, honestly, for the community. We agree that Missouri faces challenges, including abandoned landfills. Those challenges deserve thoughtful solutions, but eliminating a proven system and dissolving public oversight is not the answer. We have a meeting on March 4th at 1 p.m. in the Bennett Springs Conference Room. Senator, I'd like for you to attend if you can. DNR will be presenting the latest information on abandoned landfills to the SWAB, Solid Waste Advisory Board. We're interested in solutions. Most of our funding is small. It can't handle the bigger problems, but it's a problem and we want to solve it. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I also serve as former chair of the district for Kansas City, so I've had a lot of hats.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions of this witness? Senator Burns, got to proceed.
I might have missed this since I had to leave, but you said you're providing oversight. What do you say to the accusations that Senator Brown said about, buying paintings and all kinds of other stuff that are going on?
That was 2 decades ago. That happened in Region L, and our records indicate it was under $9,000 over a 3-year period for office artwork, and I don't believe it was ever reimbursed. Districts spend money, DNR reviews it and reimburses it. I believe they didn't reimburse it. The district paid for it on their own. It was a mistake, and it's over.
They paid for it on their own with money that the state gave them?
No.
What do you mean they paid?
They have other funding sources, and District L is actually here. Their executive director. I'm sure would be happy to answer questions if we had time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of this witness? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to testify for informational purposes only? Again, we got a hard stop in 7 minutes, so be very conscious of your time, please.
I will be extremely brief. My name is Derek Stanley. I am the Executive Director for Regions F and T, which encompasses basically east of Kansas City, north to the Missouri River, over to Boonville, and south to I-44. I have around 35 years of experience in the solid waste management and recovery industries. We have, there's a lot of great things that our 2 regions do, but we've met with our boards, and we are certainly open to compromise with the department to work through this issue. I'm not going to belabor a lot of the testimony. I think the Senator did an excellent job of encapsulating it, and I think everyone who's testified today did a pretty good job in accurately stating most of it. So that's really all I have to say is, we're open to this, and there's no question that these sites need to be cleaned up. And under 260, I'll say this, under 26310, when we originally formed Senate Bill 530, and I was there when we did it back in the day, the intent of the districts was to cover all of the solid waste realm. It wasn't just to do grants for recycling, and that somehow got lost in this. Moreover, The point was made by the senator that there were 77 landfills at the time, so there was plenty of funding for each district. We now have 9 districts that are minimally funded, 2 more that are basically just above minimally funded. So, there might be some room for consideration of consolidation to make sure we can support the fund.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions of this witness?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. Someone to testify in favor of, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Elaine Arter, and I am the unfortunate holder of the 2024 tax lien of a landfill. I say unfortunate because I bid on a 40-acre parcel of land in Franklin County at the 2024 tax sale, not knowing it was the notorious Generally Hauling landfill. I'm speaking with you today from the perspective of a tax sale participant who knows firsthand that we need our laws fixed to prevent landfills from ending up on tax sales, or at the very least, we need disclosure in writing that a parcel is a landfill before it's auctioned at a tax sale. And I'm going to tell you why it's important that we do so and why we need Senate Bill 1586 to become law. Abandoned landfills, like Generally Hauling, pose a risk when they are not maintained. This is evidenced by what has been happening to Jim Roberts' farm. Missouri's current laws and regulations do not sufficiently protect property rights of neighboring owners near a landfill, specifically those landfills that end up on Missouri delinquent tax sales. They are regulated by MDNR's waste management program, which is responsible for maintaining and monitoring them to ensure their structural integrity and safety. Regulations require permitting, maintenance, and closure standards being met on all landfills, all of which protect the public and the environment. But MDNR states it does not have the authority or enough money or staff to address the landfills that are at highest risk, which are the abandoned ones. Abandoned status means there is no owner of record, therefore no one to take responsibility. Currently, MDNR does not have the power to step in and take control of those that are abandoned. Bill 1586 will grant MDNR the authority to do so by first reallocating money already available under the statutes. But even still, Franklin County found the loopholes and has been playing the semantics game that has allowed them to auction the Generally Hauling landfill numerous times without appropriate disclosure. We know about the environmental tragedy now playing out in Jim Roberts' farm, which could have been addressed decades ago. But because Franklin County has been able to skirt the current laws, it contributed to Mr. Roberts' farm becoming a hazmat crime scene we see now playing out. They usurped the laws knowing they were selling a failing landfill at a tax sale. So Missouri has 29 abandoned landfills, which pose a high risk of seeping leachate in surrounding soil, poisoning groundwater and rivers. This leachate intrudes upon neighboring properties, such as Mr. Roberts. Of course, this toxic leachate has negative impacts on health, the environment, and wildlife, and it destroys property values along with the right to quiet enjoyment. I'm here to say that a landfill should never be sold in such a manner that deprives the public appropriate disclosure of the legal consequences of owning a landfill. A tax sale does not ensure knowledgeable and financially capable people bid on it. I have no business of owning a landfill because I have neither the financial means or knowledge to do so. So it goes without saying that I will not be taking ownership of Generally Hauling, and Franklin County knows this, but they are still intent in keeping my investment. We all care about property rights and stable property values. We all should want to help prevent another disaster such as this on Jim Roberts' farm. And I want tax sale participants such as myself to have better protection under the law. This bill will do all of that, plus provide the authority and revenue for MDNR to maintain these landfills. Please fix our laws. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And Senator Washington, proceed.
Hi, thank you for coming all this way, and we appreciate your testimony, and I really understand what you've gone through, but I do have a couple of questions and might make me your enemy. I don't live in Franklin County, so do you all not have the ability to go out and look at the land and do some of the research on it before bidding?
I did my research. There was nothing discovered.
Okay, so like
And-
never
and
ever
scars.
did the previous owner, you mentioned that they didn't know who the owners were. So had there never been an owner who had defaulted on the taxes?
That's why it ended up on the tax sale.
Right,
for-
so like
for
in
2
our
years.
county and in my grandparents' county, we still know who the last owner was, even though, you know, because you can't get on there until the owner doesn't pay the taxes for a few years. So I know who the owner was. In fact, I as an attorney, I've advised some friends of mine who have come to me as investment folks like yourself to go to the owner. And buy it outright from the owner and then go pay the taxes so you don't have to do the bid. And I'm not disputing, I don't know what you guys do. And I totally understand. I totally understand what you've gone through. And I think that's atrocious. I really do. But I'm one of those people. I think we also got to take some responsibility. I think Franklin County should give you your money back for sure. Because they should have known that. But I'm just asking, did you not have an opportunity to see how it was zoned or anything like that? Like if I bought a house and I wanted to turn it into a duplex, I got to know whether or not I'm able to do that by the zoning that the city has for that community. And so I would think that the landfill also has a specific zoning that was attached to the property. So I agree with you. I'm just asking, were you not able to do some of those things? And I know some counties don't let you, you can't walk into raggedy houses or whatever. I understand that. So I don't know if they don't let you on the land. That's what I'm trying to decipher.
Right. There's two aspects of what you were saying. First of all, my research did not reveal that it was a landfill. And second of all, Mr. LaMarco, he was one of the prior owners, had passed away. So that's why it ended up.
So what was it zoned?
Check.
Do you know what kind of land? Agriculture?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the answer I was looking for. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions of this witness? This will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 1586. Everyone's welcome to submit their testimony to Mr. Abashan here, who is the Chief of Staff for the Chairman. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.